you very much. The title of my speech today is How to Give a Speech.
How long is it supposed to be?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
You would think that that's actually a pretty simple topic, but you know, it's something we don't really discuss that much. So maybe this is a good time to take it out and take a look at it and make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to exactly how you go about giving a speech. Now, the purpose of this speech, or one of the ways I'd like to make this speech make a little bit more of an impact with you, is I'm trying to leverage the power of the internet. So it was actually a few weeks ago that I sent everybody in the club an email. And in that email, I had a beautiful color copy of this particular chart. I'm going to be talking to you now a little bit about this chart to let you know exactly what it means. Because this isn't just a chart. This is a magical chart. This chart contains all the information that you'll ever need to build and deliver life-changing speeches. Right. So let's talk about giving a speech for just a brief moment. When you get asked to make a presentation to a group of people, what do you do? Panic, of course. That's what we all do, right? Do you go sit down and fire up PowerPoint? Say, let's see, it's going to be, what, a 30-minute speech, I'm going to need 15 slides. Let me just start cranking out those slides. And after I build the slides, then maybe I'll sit down and figure out what I want to say and make my words sort of fit the slides. We all have a different way of going about crafting and creating this speech. And what I want to do is I want to get you to step away from the keyboard. I want you to step away from the night before, going, oh, hey, I got to give a speech, and actually treat the creation and delivery of speech as what it is. It's a process, right? And it's a process that if you can master the process of giving a speech, what it means is that every single speech that you give is going to be a great speech. That sound like a very good objective to go for?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right. So really what it breaks down to, any process has to have steps, and in this particular process, there's 7 steps. And if you do each one of these steps, the value to you is that you won't forget anything. Because as speakers, that's one of the things that we really kick ourselves, right? You know, we put together a speech, we get up, maybe we even give the speech, and then after it's all over, what we say, oh, darn, I should have talked about that, or I should perhaps not have done that, etc., etc. So that's what this process is set up to do. It's designed to give you sort of a framework in which to build and deliver your speech, which will allow you to not forget anything. So we're going to start off with the very first step in the process, which is to plan your speech. Now that sounds like a very basic thing. Of course I'll plan my speech. But all too often we get busy writing the actual speech and we don't spend any time planning. Planning seems like a simple thing, but what does it actually mean? First off, the very first thing, before you do anything with the speech, is figure out what's your purpose. Why have you been asked to give this speech? Now, the trick with this one is that you might think you know, but do you really know? Have you asked the person who asked you to give a speech, why? What would you like me to do? You know, there's really 4 different things that they can ask you to do during a speech. First one is to entertain the audience, right? There's no real purpose, just we got some time, we'd like you to say a few words and make people smile and laugh, okay? The other one is to educate people. We've all gone to school. We know what a teacher does. Teacher has knowledge. A teacher stands up there and tells you what you need to know. Another one is to motivate people. A motivational speaker sees the world differently than we do, and the purpose of a motivational speech is to change the way your audience sees the world and get them to actually do stuff. And the 4th type of speech, of course, is a demonstration speech, where somebody shows you how to do something so that after the speech is over, you know how to do the same thing and you can go off and do it. Any one of those 4 is fine. You just have to pick which one works best for this one. The second thing you have to do when you're planning your speech is understand who your audience is going to be. The speech that you would give to a class of 6th graders is going to be completely different to the type of speech that you would give to working professionals. Right? So make sure that you know who's going to be in your audience. It gets a little bit tricky, of course. Right? You know, if you're giving a public speech, it's going to be a mix of people. So what you're going to be looking for is what's the common factor among all of your audience people. They may be old, they may be young, they may be skinny, they may be fat, it doesn't even matter. The reason is, why are they there? What brings them together? What shared interest do they have? If you know what that is, you can work that into your speech. Okay? And then the final thing that I would ask you to plan when you're putting together your speech is, what's the one takeaway you want your audience to have? look, you're going to go to the effort of building the speech. You're going to go to the effort of standing up there and giving the speech. Okay? You want something to happen. You want the world to be changed because you did all of that. My question is, what's the one thing that you want to have happen? You might have 12 things that you'd like to have happen, and that's fine, but which one of those 12 things is the most important? If you can identify the one thing that you want to have occur because of the speech that you gave, then all of a sudden you'll have a shining thing to focus on as you build the rest of the speech. The second step in the process is to organize your speech. Now, organization of a speech, of course, means opening, middle, and close. We all know about that. But most importantly, one of the most important things you have to do when you're giving a speech is when you start your speech out, you have to explain to your audience why you're giving the speech. What are your qualifications to be standing up there, taking up their time? Is it that you know more about insurance than they do? Is it that you're more studied on the topic of global warming than anybody in the audience is? What gives you the right to take up their time with your speech? You need to be very clear about that right off the bat. The next thing you need to do is really provide your audience with an outline of what you're going to be talking about. You don't have to tell them everything you're going to say, okay? But rather you need to sort of give them a picture of what your speech is going to look like. We're going to be talking about global warming today, and I'm going to touch on some of the reasons that we're in the situation that we're in, but I'm also going to share with you some of the changes that we can make to make for a better future. Something like that, where all of a sudden they know what you're going to be talking about so that they can come along with you. Everything isn't a surprise. The third step in the process is to actually create your speech. And I'm sure this is the part that we all happen to jump to right off the bat when we're asked to give a speech. And so we know a lot of the different parts. Obviously there's research, right? Your audience is coming to listen to you give a speech. Any information that you provide them, facts and stats and stuff like that, thanks to the power of Google, they could get themselves. Okay? So it's not the facts that you're going to share with them that's the real value. It's rather you take those facts, you find those facts, you put them together. It's the knowledge that you gain from the information that you've collected. That's the real value. Your interpretation of the information is what your audience really came to hear you talk about today. Okay? There should be a plot to your next speech. Now, plot means that you have characters, you have situations, and you have events. And these are all important things. We love stories. We love going to the movies. Stories and movies have plots in them, right? Your speech should have the same thing. You know, if I was talking about global warming, talk about a great story, right? There's people and industries that have caused the situation that we're in now. You know, the situation is an unfolding situation where we have like increasing temperatures and flooding coasts and stuff like that. And you know, the plot would then finish up with including, you know, who's going to take action in the future and how are things going to change because of their action. When you're putting together your slides, depending on what your artistic talent is, we have a tendency to just slap some black and white text on a slide, put it up there, and point to it when we're giving our speech. And you can certainly do that. But really remember, the purpose of any sort of visual material that you're having in conjunction with your presentation is to enhance your message, right? So the question you need to ask about every single slide that you're going to present is, how does this make what I'm saying that much more effective? This comes down to text that you're using, of course, size and color and all that sort of stuff like that. Color in the slide. Color is a very powerful communication technique in of itself, right? And then, of course, images and where you put those images on the slide, right? You don't want to just slap them in there. They all have to contribute to the story that you're trying to tell. Now, the fourth part of the process is demonstration, right? A lot of different presentations that we give include a demonstration. I personally hate demonstrations. I think the risk of giving a demonstration, the risk of a demonstration going wrong is almost incalculable. There's a classic photo that's circulating on the internet these days, and it's a picture of Bill Gates, arguably the wealthiest man in the world, on the stage, and I think it was at Comdex 1998. And behind him on the Jumbotron, for everyone to see, is the Microsoft blue screen of death. I think it was like Windows 95 or something, he was giving a demonstration and his operating system failed. Remember, this is the wealthiest man in the world, a lot more wealthy than you are, right? And he couldn't prevent a demonstration from going badly, right? But at the same point in time, I understand that there are certain situations in which a demonstration is probably called for. I just ask that if you're going to give a demonstration, you focus on the one thing that you want to show your audience. And you show them that, and then you move on. Do not take the time to show them a complete software package or explain the full specs of an architectural rendering or something like that. Find the one thing you want to talk to them about, talk about it, then move on to something else. After demonstration comes a rehearsal. I'm always asked, how many times should I rehearse to give a speech? The answer is 7. The magic number for rehearsing a speech is 7 times. It gets a little bit complicated, but basically the first 3 or 4 times you're going to be working on getting the words correct. The next 2 times you're going to be working pretty much just to get the flow of the speech correct. And the last time is designed to give you a chance to work the energy back into the speech. So when you actually give it, it comes across as being the first time that you've ever given that speech. The next step in the process, and step number 6, is the presentation. And although we think about the presentation as being the big part of any speech, really if you've done all these other steps, this should actually be very, very smooth. You should have a checklist, make sure you get everything taken care of, make sure you allocate enough time for a question and answer session at the end, and I really recommend that you have somebody give an introduction for you before you start to give your speech. What that means is that you have somebody, hopefully somebody of some importance to the audience, somebody that the audience respects, come up and say, listen, there's this great person who's going to share this fascinating speech with you. Won't you join me in welcoming him? That means when you take the stage, all of a sudden you're going to have that goodwill launching your ship. It's very, very similar to the concept of a comedian having an opening act. Let the person who's introducing you be your opening act and get the audience warmed up for you. The final step in this process is change. You know, as speakers, we like to think that we got ready, we delivered it, pow, we hit it out of the park, end of story. And the answer is no, that's never the end of the story. You may be asked to give that speech again. In order to change for the better, you need to make sure that you capture how you did on that presentation. I would urge you to either have friends in the audience take notes, maybe videotape it. If you're going to have people take notes, I ask that you just have them answer 2 questions. Number 1, what part of my speech seemed to go over the best with the audience? Where was everybody nodding? And number 2, what thing, if I was going to give that speech again, would you like to see me change or do differently? If you can get the answers to those 2 questions, then all of a sudden you'll have enough information to give the speech better next time. Now, I wanted to leave you with a website. This one is called www.theaccidentalcommunicator. This is actually a blog that I produce and put out there. But basically it has one purpose. It has tips and techniques to allow all of us to become better speakers. There's a monthly newsletter associated with it. This is all free. Okay? Do me a favor, go check out the website. See if you can find something that's going to help you do a better job next time you're asked to give a speech.
Thank you for that wonderful, inspiring